For those of you into shooting games, you may be familiar with a game called SpecOps: The Line. Well, as you might imagine, this isn't the only game in the SpecOps series. SpecOps started out in 1998 for the PlayStation, the Sega Dreamcast, and the PC, the first game being SpecOps: Ranger Lead the Way. And since then, they had a couple other games by a couple different studios and developers. The two we'll be looking at today are SpecOps Ranger Elite and SpecOps Covert Assault, both released in the same year, 2001. Now, as you can imagine, with both games being released the same year, that they are very similar to each other. In fact, this is going to be my first ever double review. So, let us begin.
Recognizing that I volunteered as a ranger, fully knowing the hatches of my chosen profession, I will always endeavor to uphold the prestige, honor, and high.
In every intro, they have a read-off of the official U.S. Army Ranger Creed.
Battle by land, sea, or air. I accept the fact that there's a ranger. My country expects me to move further, faster, and fight harder than any other soldier. Never shall I fail my comrades. I will always keep myself mentally alert, physically strong, and morally straight. And I will shoulder more than my share of the task, whatever it may be. 100%
As you can see here in SpecOps Covert Assault, basically the same intro, just different stuff.
Energetically while I meet the enemies of my country.
And slightly higher pitch of the voice recording, now that I think about it.
Surrender is not a ranger word. I will never leave the fallen comrade to fall in the hands of the enemy, and under no circumstance will I ever embarrass my country. Rarely will I display the intestinal fortitude required to fight on a ranger objective and complete the mission, though I be the lone survivor.
Bold intro. Could have used a little more action with gunshots and explosives, but it still makes a bold statement. Alright, here we have the main menu. Looks pretty nice. Sounds pretty nice as well. So we have one player quick start, which I believe quickly picks what ranger you're using and what weapons and equipment you have. Have one player and two player games. So you have your options, screen positioning, controller config, vibration, blah blah blah. You have your difficulties ranging from easy, medium, and hard, going from private, corporal to sergeant. I think I'll go with corporal. Now, both games consist of 4 missions each composed of 2 to 4 phases of each. And each mission phase, you have your different objectives. Now, this is a screen that most SpecOps fans should be familiar with, at least the classic series, as it is pretty much the same in the classics. Here you have 5 classes of rangers, being machine gunner, close quarter shotgun / submachine gun, recon sniper, grenade launcher, and assault rifle. And depending on what missions you have, you might want to shift a little bit. And keep in mind that it's a 2-man team. And I would assume that with everyone having their own specialties, that they do better with damage infliction. It's just a guess, but I'm willing to say it's a good guess. And depending on what mission you're on, you might not even need a whole lot of explosives. And keep in mind that you can only carry 1 medkit at a time. So if you find one on the battlefield and you really need one, get it. And you can also determine how many clips you're carrying, what kind of scope you're using if you've got a weapon that's compatible with one. As you can probably see, it's all determined with weight deduction. And you might notice in their ID, you might notice a fatigue meter, and that lessens every time you complete a mission phase. Like, say, if you use one the first time, then use them again the third time, yeah, they'll have full health the third time. But if you use them back to back, they won't be at full health. They'll have a little bit taken off. Alright, let's go. Alright, so with controls, that might take a little bit of getting used to. To hold down R2, use up and down to change posture. Left and right determines if you roll or if you're standing. Sidestep. Usually I use kneeling, as it makes you less visible. And if you're using a scope, like in a lot of games, you hold down L1. You change buddies with triangle. In some missions, like this one in Egypt, when you use the select button, you can use the map, and in this case, in this mission phase, it's a very good idea, as you can probably see. You can also use it to view objectives. There's also buddy commands, which when you hold down L2 and press the triangle, square, circle, and X buttons, like that one I just did square. Buddy commands can take a little bit of getting used to, but fortunately you don't have to use them when you're in combat. With inventory, hold down R1, and you can only change weapons if you pick up your buddies when he dies. You cycle through them with up and down, left and right. And to use something like explosive inventory, like right now I have a frag equipped, use the square button. And for the med kit and miscellaneous gadgets, use circle. As you might expect, you like in an older PlayStation 1 game, use X to fire. Now, depending on what mission you're on, you might have different objectives, like rescuing hostages from the hands of the enemy, destroying stuff like vehicles, drug stashes, weapon stashes, etc. Getting to certain waypoints, sometimes stealthily, as in this mission. And a cool thing about SpecOps is that something that you don't normally see in a lot of these earlier shooter games is that it does really good with polygons. What do I mean by this is that, unlike in a game like Army Men, Sarge's Heroes, where you want to shoot through a tree but you can't, in SpecOps, like for instance, if you can see a guy's head above something, you can pretty much shoot it. I mean, it doesn't happen all the time, but it's better than most of the games at the time. Sometimes you might even find pickups and power-ups along the way. In this case, a med kit. As well as ammunition. Now, after having completed said objectives, you either make your way to a certain waypoint, completing the phase and getting ready for the next one, and at the end of every mission, you might also have, being the last phase of it, an evac chopper, last phase might also include rescuing a hostage, and it picks them up too. But either way, the chopper evac at the extraction point represents the end of the mission. And you also get commendation grades depending on how well you do for the missions / phases. Depending on how many enemies are killed, how many of you guys are still alive, shots fired, accuracy ratio, and completion time. And in this case, I got a bronze star, which I would believe is like probably a B. And with both games, Ranger Elite and Covert Assault, you can see that on the title screen, if you wait long enough, you can see a high score screen for the different missions that there are. Now, from a technical standpoint, the graphics aren't bad, although they could have been a little better considering it was 2001. Sounds pretty good. Music kicks ass. As far as the music goes, it's like different renditions of the same song throughout the whole mission and the phases. So it's basically a playlist per mission. Although this just hit me. By looking at the titles, like you see the vehicles and stuff, but it's not really based on any moving vehicles, let alone very many that actually shoot anything. It's usually just blowing up what's stationary. But anyway, now let's take a look at Covert Assault, shall we? So as you can see here, the menu is pretty much identical. It even has the same soundtrack, menu-wise. Still maintains the 4 missions. Although now that I think about it, I think the brightness has improved a little bit, at least for the defaults. And like I said, the loadout screen is pretty much the same throughout the series. In fact, in this game, like I said, they even, with the different squads of different guys and their names, same names and everything, with a chronological mission order. So as far as gameplay goes, it's very similar to prequel. Same basic missions, same basic objectives, and such. For the graphics, as you can probably see, it's improved upon a little bit, both character models and the environment. Although one thing I do wonder about the graphics is that why the running animations and how the character models and their movement isn't as fluent as it was in like a game like SpecOps Stealth Patrol. And I mean that game, as far as fluency with movement, it's like it was in like a Tomb Raider game for the PS1. Very smooth. Not just 3 or 4 frames per leg movement. As far as sound goes, it might be improved slightly, if not the same. Although as far as soundtrack, as you can probably hear, it's pretty much the same song of the same playlist. Throughout every mission. Although once in a while, like like when nothing much happens, and go through a playlist, at least on the PS3 anyway. Once in a while you might hear some other variations, some other bridges, if you will, of the song. Now, even here in the first mission on SpecOps Covert Assault, they don't give you much of a break. Because around this corner is a sniper, so unless you have perfect health, you're gonna die if you're not careful, or not ready. Oh, the fun doesn't stop there, because on some phases and some missions there are some enemies that are well equipped, and there are also even times where you're running out of time. But out of all the hard times in the game is probably this certain phase. As you can see, I could have died there. Especially considering I don't even know where another medkit is. Because they disappear. Yeah, like that. Unlike Ranger Elite, the map this time is a little bit more accurate. Looks a little bit sharper, and not just that, but also gives you a general location of where you and your buddy are. So overall, I think they're both pretty good games. I'd recommend them for any fan of the classic war genre, particularly if you're into strategy and tactics. It's right up there with Rainbow Six, I think. So yeah, this has been Garrett McCouchy's Cummings in another game review.